If you're a STEM student or anybody that uses a lot of equations, then I strongly recommend that you write your homeworks using LaTeX. LaTeX is a markup language, which means you can type away in the code and it's not so bad, and I'm going to show you a bunch of tricks that make it way easier in this video, and it produces these beautiful documents. And since this is sort of the industry standard in a ton of STEM fields, like your professors are probably writing all of their homeworks and tests that you get using LaTeX. So the earlier sort of you get on the bandwagon and make it just natural to do everything in terms of LaTeX, the easier everything's going to be. Now, I have made a ton of LaTeX videos already on this channel on a whole bunch of advanced topics. The goal of this video is a complete introduction for somebody who knows nothing about LaTeX, and specifically, I want to make it as easy as possible to get started. Now, down in the description, I have a link to the exact template that I'm going to be using in this video that you can use and you can adapt for your own purposes. This is a template on overleaf.com. Now, full disclosure, this entire playlist is sponsored by Overleaf, but I really do believe in them. I think they're a great LaTeX editor to get started, and one of their strongest features is particularly easy for beginners. And I'm going to show you a few tricks about that in this video. Now, when we first open Overleaf, we'll notice I have all this fancy code on the left as well as my document on the right. And what you might like to do near the beginning is up on the top, you can switch between what's called the code editor and the visual editor. If you do the visual editor, it removes a lot of the code and makes it feel like you're writing just like you would be writing in a Word document. I can put anything here. However, if you go and click on, say, a specific equation, like I've got a definition of the Riemann integral here, it pops up all of the precise fancy code that was used to create that particular equation. And so you can alternate back and forth if you need to go to the full code and look up every single detail, or to just get started, you can work away in the visual editor. Now, the first thing you probably want to do is not have my name on your homework assignment. And you'll notice that in the visual editor here, I have something called Show the Document Preamble, and you can expand that, and that's all the code. Most of the time you can just ignore this. I have put things in this preamble that are useful to the general formatting of homeworks. For example, I did things like set it to have 1-inch margins. You can change these if you wish. But the main thing you're going to change is go right down here to where I put stuff into the header, and you can change my name to your name, my homework to your homework. And LaTeX here is automatically going to put in the date that this is being recorded, which is November 29th for me, as well as the page number at the bottom. I have put both of these down in the preamble. So other than changing those two locations right now, I'm usually going to hide this and not change this until I have a more specific reason that I might want to do, and I do more advanced stuff in the future. Now, before we do anything else, let's learn how to write some mathematics, one of the key ideas of LaTeX. So I'm going to go to this formula here. I first observe that on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side, it's wrapped in this backslash square brackets. This tells us that everything inside of this is going to be my equation. Let's delete everything and begin from the beginning. If you're just learning, I'm a big fan of coming up and using the symbol palette, which gives a lot of different symbols as you're trying to learn what their names are. We are going to go to operators here and find the integral, and you can do that until you remember that the symbol for integral is \n. If I want a lower bound, then I'm going to do _a, and then I'm going to use the caret to go b. That's going to give me my lower and upper bounds. If I compile that, then what do I get? The integral from a up to b. Now I think I can make some guesses here. I'm going to go \lim for limit, guessing that that's going to be the right one, and it is, as I know. Then what do I want to put underneath the limit? I'm again going to do the underscore. And then the way LaTeX works is that you can use squiggly brackets to put stuff together. So when there was only an a and you did underscore a, it understood that the a was the thing you put underneath. But if there's more than one symbols there, it's like, well, what things are supposed to be on the bottom and what things are just meant to be beside it? So to lump everything on the bottom, you put in these squiggly brackets. I'm going to write the norm of the partition. Then I want an arrow, something going to 0. So I can come back down to the palette and I can click on this arrow, and it looks like, the formatting is \right arrow. I also like \2, that works, but either way I'm going to put a 0. All right, then what happens next? Then we have a summation. That's another operator. You can probably guess this one here. For sum, it's going to be \sum. The backslash always sort of indicates where the command is going to start. Let's do a similar thing here, underscore. I want to put in squiggly brackets or braces that it starts from k equal to 1, and then it is going all the way up to the value of n. And then now I'll write f of xk star, where I again use my underscore and carets to be at the bottom and the top. And then I want to write in a delta x here. If I go to my Greek, I get all of my symbols. And this is important just because there's a lowercase delta and a capital delta. Quite sensibly, the command for capital delta is just capital delta. So that's one that you can memorize pretty quickly. And then x sub k. And so we get this lovely, pretty picture. Now, I'm going to do some fancier equations later in this video, and of course I have a large playlist with a whole bunch of fancy equations. I'll link those below. But this is the basic idea. Any mathematics that you want to write, you can very beautifully write using LaTeX. It just takes a few commands and a little bit of the understanding of the basic structure, for example, with the braces and the underscores, to understand how generally these equations can be written. Next up, what we want to do is have a bunch of problems. Here I have problem 1, 2, 3, and 4. For example, if I wanted to put another one, I could just click enter and I could have this is a third problem. You'll notice that just typing it over here doesn't change it on the right-hand side. I have to come up here to this button that says recompile. And when you press this button, now there is this third problem. It's appeared. If you like, you can come up here and click it to automatically compile, and that means it's going to be regularly doing it as you go along and typing. I like to leave it off because I like to have control. I'm a bit of a control freak. The fact that in the visual editor it has 1, 2, 3, but over here is problem 1, problem 2, problem 3 was something that I coded for you. I wanted to make in my template for you the homeworks to look this way. You might not like that. Maybe you don't want to call them problems. So I have to go back to the code editor. And in the code editor, the way I've done it is something called begin enumerate, and then \item, \item, that always indicates you've got a new problem. If you look at the fancy code here, you'll notice that I have defined it to be problem, then an Arabic number to give problem 1. That's how I internally did it. If you want to call it, for example, question, you could come here, recompile, and every one of those problems is going to turn into questions. This is part of why LaTeX is really nice, is that you can change things once and it changes everywhere. You don't have to keep track of counting the number of things in your list. You can set it once to have a particular style and it will do it for everything. Next up, I want to create a table. I've seen an example of one that I've done right here. Now, tables are actually kind of annoying to code. I've made an entire video on them before. But here again, in the visual editor, we can use a shortcut with the wizard. So if I come up here and insert a table, let's insert a table. How about let's do a 3x2 table. And you can see this is all nice and visual. So I'm going to come in and try to reproduce the one I did before. So column 1, column 2, that's not how you spell the word column. And then 1, 2, 3, and 4. If I compile this, I'm going to get a second table appearing. Hold on, where did my table go? My table is up here at the top. Now, I did this deliberately because this often is one of the most confusing initial things, is tables are what we're referred to as floating objects, which is LaTeX goes and puts them wherever they think is going to be best, in this case, the top of the page. Often students don't like this. So I'm going to go back to the code editor, and here you can see the formatting for the table that the little wizard automatically generated. So I have one trick for you, which is to come after the begin table and put in square brackets the parameter h. That stands for here. And when I compile this, now it tells LaTeX to put the table exactly where you wanted. So this is an example where you can go into the code and make little tweaks to get it to do what you want. This is my favorite one. Now, right now, I have no lines around it, whereas the one I'm trying to get to has nice lines. The way I can do that is come here. I can select the entire table that I want to have, and I'm going to change my borders to all borders. That's pretty good, but what did I want? I wanted a double line here. I'm going to go back to my code editor and tweak that. How I come here is I just noticed that in the code that H line makes a horizontal line. Let's just do 2 of those. And I'm going to come back and compile. What I'm hopefully illustrating is the way I can go back and forth between the visual editor as well as the actual code to help me learn what the code is and sort of be supportive as I make those kind of transitions. You'll also notice down here you can change the caption. So this is a caption. And I can come over here And it gives a nice automated caption. If you want, you can delete those. This is totally fine. Now, if I actually want to refer to this table, I can say something like this. I can reference table, and here's how I do it. I do \ref, and then I put in the squiggly brackets, and I actually have two different ones right now. The reference for here was put in as my label, so I'm going to write my label here. If I go and do this, what it does is it says I can reference table 1 where this is table 1. What's great about this is if you have a bunch of different tables and you're adding stuff and you're tweaking things, you don't have to worry about the fact that you have multiple tables. You just reference the one you do, and the changing of the numbers will happen automatically. If I want to make a matrix, this is common, of course, in linear algebra courses, it's almost the same thing as a table, but with a slight difference. If I go to the code editor and go to my matrix, you'll notice that the basic formatting is the same, that in between the cells of a matrix, there's double ampersands, and to indicate the end of a row, there's a double backslash. It's just that instead of doing a begin tabular environment for tables, what you do is a begin B matrix and end B matrix. The B here stands for bracket, and it makes a lovely little matrix that's got brackets around it. Next up, I've got this image here, and let me go and delete this so I can start from the beginning. And what I'm going to do is if I click this little button on the left here, it pops up all of the files that are in this project. And this is going to be relevant in a moment because I'm going to come up here and I'm going to insert a figure, and I'm going to upload a figure from my computer. I have a few options. I'm going to call this a parabola, and it's going to be in the main folder here. I decided I don't want to bother putting a caption underneath it. I don't want a label to refer to it. I'm going to do it as simple as possible. And yeah, having it be half the width of the page makes sense. Let me insert my figure. So there it goes into the visual editor. Now let's compile it one more time. And you'll notice that I placed this right here in question 5, but the image occurs down here. LaTeX can't actually put in the image in the amount of space that I have, so it tries to put it in the next available spot. You can do the same sort of trick here that I mentioned before of writing the square H, but it's actually going to ignore you if you try to do it because it just doesn't have enough space there. So one of the things you might want to do is you might want to manually decide that you don't want question 6 to occur until after. And so one of the things that you can do here is you could come in here and write the word new page. If I do this, it's going to make a new page. So here it is, there's blank space, nothing can fit there, the picture is too big, but it means the question 6 happens after the image. So this can make a really nice change. Next up, I want to talk about my fancier equations here. So if I click on this, you can see there's a really large amount of code to make my definition of the derivative of x squared computation. And what's particularly nice about this is that all of these equal signs all make sense, that they're all nicely aligned on top of each other. This is how you get bonus points with your professors for looking stylistically beautiful. The way I did this, if I open up the code, is with something called begin align and end align. And so everything inside the begin align and the end align is going to be aligned. And what you'll notice is that I put an ampersand here in front of the equal sign, here in front of the equal sign, here in front of the equal sign, all the way along. So this allows you to write many different equations, and what it does is it puts where that ampersand is all along a line, and therefore they all occur at the same time. The f prime of x at the beginning is to the left of the ampersand, that's why it sticks out to the left, but all the ampersands are all in the beginning. If you have a question that has multiple parts to it, you might want to make your own list, now not called questions, maybe you just want them to be like A, B, C, D. You can do this very nicely, so I can go \begin, and you'll notice how Overleaf pops up a bunch of different options. The one we're going to do is enumerate, and then immediately pops up now letters A. So this is part A, I could do this is part B. And if I go into the code editor and see what it did here, basically it just treats items as the start of the enumeration. And because this begin enumerate is inside of the larger enumerate that I have for the questions, well, the first ones were all giving me numbers. These ones on the inside of the ones giving me numbers are automatically formatted to give me letters. If If you wanted to change those, you could change those just in the same way that we did by going up to the definition of enumerate and adding extra parameters to make those look exactly the way you did. But for now, if I compile, then what do I get? I just get these lovely little letters. So that's how you can do a few more parts. Apparently, I've gotten one too many enumerates. I've got 3 enumerates, and so it was giving me a little red code error, which is useful. You follow those codes and you do what they tell you. Now that's fixed up. Fun thing I would tell you is you can always come here and change some formatting. If I wanted that to be bold, I could bold this. If I wanted this to be italicized, I could do that. All of this is just going to come in just as if it was, any other sort of editor and change these. If you want to see what the code actually does, it inputs it text boldface and text IT. Now, final thing, I want to show you one more trick. Everyone's always afraid of losing stuff up. You can go up to your history, and you'll notice as I've been doing this 1004, looks like I started back down yesterday when I was just doing some very basic edits. You have an entire version history of every single one. I could go back at any moment of time. I see the highlights of the differences between the sections, and I can go back and find any old version. So I'm a huge fan of this particular feature. Now, with that, I think you could click the link down in the description, get the template that I've been using, and modify to make your first homework. If you want to do more work with it, then check out the link to the playlist that I have it out in the description. If you have any questions about LaTeX, leave them in the comments. My final thank you to Overleaf for once again for sponsoring this entire series on LaTeX. I've been having so much fun with it, and I hope that you will as well. Thanks for watching, and we'll do some more math in the next video.